Have you ever wondered how a single country thousands of miles away could set off an economic earthquake that shakes the entire planet? Well, today we're diving into exactly that. We're looking at Venezuela and how a political showdown there could spark a massive global chain reaction, with two things right at the center of it all: oil and gold.
I mean, that quote really sets the stage, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the stakes we're talking about here. This isn't just some regional issue, it's a major flashpoint, and it has the potential for some seriously huge global consequences.
So, to really get why this whole situation is so explosive, you've got to understand what makes Venezuela so important in the first place. And honestly, it all boils down to what's buried under the ground.
The scale of this is it's staggering. We're not talking about a country that just has some oil and gold. No, Venezuela is practically floating on an ocean of wealth. And that immense fortune, that's the very reason it's become this intense geopolitical battleground.
So for decades, you've had Venezuela following this model of saying, hey, this is our wealth, we're going to nationalize it, and we're going to make friends with whoever we want, including rivals of the US like Russia and China. But from Washington's point of view, that's not just an economic policy, it's a direct threat, right in its own backyard.
And that tension that's been simmering for years, well now, it's boiling over. The source material we're looking at points out that the talk coming from Washington isn't just diplomatic anymore. The markets are hearing direct threats of sanctions, maybe even a blockade, and they're taking it very, very seriously. And that political pressure, it kicks off the first big ripple effect. You see, in global finance, the threat of a conflict can be just as powerful as the conflict itself. And it triggers this immediate, almost predictable reaction in two of the world's most important markets, gold and oil.
Okay, to get what happens next, you have to know this term: safe haven asset. Think of it like this. When you see a storm coming, you look for shelter, right? Well, for investors, a safe haven is their financial shelter. And for literally centuries, the ultimate storm shelter, the one thing that thrives on chaos, has been gold.
So here's the chain reaction, and it's all driven by pure emotion. The political threats create fear. That fear makes investors panic and pull their money out of things they suddenly see as risky, like stocks. And where does all that money go? You guessed it. It floods into the one thing they trust to hold its value: gold. And the price? It just skyrockets.
But gold is only half the story. Remember that ocean of oil? Venezuela is a giant in the energy world. So if you suddenly take all that oil off the market, even just some of it, you're sending a massive shockwave through the world's energy supply. And when oil prices jump, trust me, every single one of us feels it. And this is where it gets really messy, because it creates this vicious cycle. The political tension makes oil prices spike. Higher oil means it costs more to ship and make literally everything, which leads to inflation. And when people start seeing their own money as losing value, they get scared and they run for safety. Right back to gold, pushing its price even higher. It just feeds on itself.
So that first ripple is spreading fast, but now it's about to turn into a full-blown wave. Why? Because this was never just a two-player game between Washington and Caracas. There are other huge global powers with a real stake in this, and they are definitely not just sitting on the sidelines.
This part is absolutely crucial to understand. For Venezuela's allies, we're talking Russia, China, and Iran, they don't see this as some isolated event. To them, a move against their ally is a direct challenge to their entire network. It's an attack on one is an attack on all situation, and it forces them to respond.
And here's the key. The response isn't just with words or weapons. It's financial. It's a counterattack. You can see here, these nations start actively buying up huge amounts of gold for themselves. They also start trying to do business in their own currencies to weaken the US dollar. This collective move, it just throws more fuel on the fire and puts even more upward pressure on the price of gold.
So let's bring this whole story a little closer to home now, because these massive global shockwaves, they create completely different realities on the ground right across the Arab world. They basically split the entire region into economic winners and losers.
It really is a tale of two regions. For the major oil exporters, like the Gulf states, a big spike in oil prices is like winning the lottery. It means a massive surge of income for them. But for the countries that have to import their oil, like Egypt or Jordan, it's a catastrophe. It means higher prices for their citizens and just crushing pressure on their economies.
It's incredible when you think about it. The exact same global event that fills up the bank accounts of one group of countries is the same one that empties the pockets of people in another. You've got these two totally opposite economic forces at play, all in the same region.
And there's another really important factor here. This quote gets right to it. In the Arab world, gold is so much more than just an investment. It has this deep cultural meaning. It represents safety, security. So when global uncertainty hits, it's not just the big investors buying up gold. It's everyday people, families, merchants. And all that local demand just multiplies the effect and sends the price climbing even faster.
All right, so let's zoom out one last time for the big takeaway. When you piece all this together, the political threats, the market panic, the moves by global powers, there is one asset that stands right in the center of it all, and it acts like a real-time barometer of global fear.
And this, right here, is the heart of the matter. The whole situation with Venezuela is a perfect example of how modern conflicts are fought. The new battlefield is often the financial market. You can think of the price of oil as telling you about the daily skirmishes, but the price of gold, well, that's what tells you the final score in the bigger war for economic stability.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty critical question, because this story isn't really just about Venezuela. It's a template. It's a blueprint for how political instability anywhere on the globe can trigger economic storms everywhere. And knowing how these things are connected, well, that's the first and maybe the most important step in figuring out how to navigate whatever turbulence is coming next.